Welcome to Getting Ghosted. This is an Intuitive Soul Collective podcast, and I'm your host, Allie Horner. I am going to tell a little bit of the story of how I first started channeling and who came through to me in the very beginning, because it's kind of weird. And I started to realize, as I went along, that wasn't that weird of an experience, but it does sound kind of weird initially when people first hear of the story. Basically what happened is my awakening was very quick and happened basically overnight, right? And part of how I knew that something just was going on, that something wasn't quite right with me, is that I started to feel this near constant presence around me. And it didn't feel bad. It felt like it was almost like a brotherly essence. And I don't have an older brother, but it felt like it was like a long lost older brother type of energy. It felt calm, peaceful, and protective. But I started to feel it like all the time. And I even sometimes would catch something out of the corner of my eye and turn to look and swear that someone was standing there, and there was no one there, but I would just keep getting this glimpse out of the corner of my eye. But it didn't feel bad, but I didn't understand what was happening. So I started to go, what is up with me? Am I nuts? Like what on earth is going on here? And I had someone really specific that kept popping in my head over and over. And it was really bizarre because it actually was an actor that had passed away. And now, mind you, I was not exactly a super fan of this actor. I think I had seen like 2 of his movies in my whole life and hadn't really thought about him much. I knew that he had passed away, but I really didn't know all that much about him otherwise, and hadn't really looked up much about him. And so what ended up happening is, because I felt like I was kind of losing my mind a little bit, I ended up Googling him. And one of the first things that popped up on my phone was an afterlife interview that someone had done by using a medium, where they had recorded the interview over Zoom, and this medium had called him in and did almost like an afterlife type of thing with him. And I just sat there and I was totally sucked in. And mind you, at this point, I had no idea I was a medium. I had totally shut down all of my abilities and kind of blocked out as many memories as I could and just gone about my day-to-day life for a long time. And so I was not trying to be a medium. I was not getting into woo-woo anything. I was not interested. I was not looking for that type of stuff. But for whatever reason, I just felt like I was just vortexed into this interview and I could not stop watching it. And it wasn't that there was anything profound or said in it that I was like, oh my gosh, but there were certain things that were said where I was like, I picked this up too. Or, I was like, how did I also know that if it wasn't anything that you would find online, but this other psychic medium is saying that he's telling her these things from the other side. And so anyways, I watched this whole interview, and I just went, okay, am I going nuts? Like, what is going on with me? How is that possible? And I just thought to myself, people do this publicly too. I was like, people really talk to dead people, in front of people. This got put on the internet, man. And I had never seen that website before either. I was not looking for stuff like that, and I'd never seen it pop up anywhere. And after that, I learned a little bit while after that spirit can work with technology, and they will make stuff pop up on your phone. Sometimes, not all the time, but they can work with technology to help that happen. So anyways, after that point, I finally told I had this coach at the time, and I told her what was going on. And she had sensed something's, because she was very intuitive herself. She's not a medium, but she was very intuitive herself. And I just told her, I think this person is coming through from the other side. And I feel like he's just around, and I didn't know him and I have no connection to him. I didn't even watch his movies. I just feel like I'm losing my mind. And I was feeling all of these emotions. I had all these emotions coming up that were really difficult to understand, because I was like, I didn't know this person. What on earth is going on? And I just felt like I was changing. I knew something big and important was happening to me, but I couldn't put it into words, and I didn't have anyone to talk to or ask about it. So I finally said this all to her, and she said, I was like, I don't know if he's really there, or why would he even come through to me? I just feel like I'm nuts. And she said, have you asked him yet? And I was like, no. can I do that? So when you guys are like, wait, we're allowed to ask. Yeah, you are allowed to ask that. And I had the same reaction at first. So that night, after I put my then tot to bed, I went and locked myself in the bathroom, and because I knew it was the only place I couldn't be disturbed. And I started running the bathtub, and I just sat down and I closed my eyes and said, okay, you can come through. I know you're here. I know you've been popping in. What have you been trying to show me or tell me? Is there a message you have for me? And immediately I was transported to this beach. And I was sitting on a surfboard and he was sitting on a surfboard, and we were facing each other. And I remember this clear as day because I was looking around, and it was like every single sense that I had was stronger, and like all of my senses were really heightened and overlapping. And this world was shimmery, and there were colors and sparks of light. And I remember the stars were out like during the day. It was just beautiful. And it was very tropical, but there were plants I didn't recognize and all sorts of cool things going on, but it was just eternally peaceful. And I don't remember the entire conversation because I was aware that the conversation with this person was completely telepathic. Like it was like we didn't have to open our mouths to talk. I just knew what we were saying back and forth, and I would know what he was saying, but it was like he knew what I was going to ask before I asked it because of the telepathy. So, it was really wild. I only remember a couple little pieces of it now because a lot of that wisdom was so deep. And at the time I wasn't acclimated to that energy yet. So, but I do remember him saying, there's nothing to fear. And then I remember him saying, this is real and you're going to find out soon just what you're meant to do with all of this. And he said, and I'm going to be here to guide you. And he said, and I'm guiding a lot of people, and they're going to start to find you, and they're going to ask you about me because they want to know that they're not going crazy either. And so you're going to be kind of like a little bit of a puzzle piece. Is that okay? And I said, yeah. I don't know what made me say yes. I was like, oh yeah. It almost felt like I was going, oh yeah, I remember this now. Even though I had never consciously thought about this before, been told this before in terms of some sort of plan. It was almost like I remembered like, oh yeah, this was the plan. I remember this was the plan all along. And the last thing he told me was time is eternal. And so time is irrelevant. And I couldn't remember exactly why he said that. It was almost just like this download, but I was in such a peaceful state that I just said, oh yeah, duh. And then I came out of this other space that I was in, and I was still sitting on my bathroom floor. And for all intents and purposes, I felt like I had been out of it for hours, but it had only been, I don't even know, maybe 10 to 15 minutes tops. Like the bath was still filling up, and it was a very large tub. So it was getting very full, but it wasn't full yet. So I was just sitting there like, I don't know. I just knew that was real, but I needed more confirmation. So the website where I'd seen the initial afterlife interview, I knew, okay, they have a bunch of different psychics and mediums on here. They had a whole page full of them. So I just picked one that stood out to me. Like it was almost like I felt like, and so the website was called Channeling Eric. And so for those of you guys who hear me talk about Eric is from Channeling Eric. I'm not an official like medium of theirs, but I have been working with Eric since that point. So that's how I found Eric, and that's how Eric and I met. And he even told me like, oh yeah, like we were meant to meet. This was meant to be. And so he's a really good guide to work with. And, person on the other side, if you're going through your awakening, he's really helpful, and he's a really strong communicator from the other side too. And he makes things fun too. So he said, well, thank you, madam. So he started to come through as well, and he pointed out one of the mediums on there. And that's how I scheduled my first ever reading with someone. And when I got into the reading with her, she said, hello, Allie. And she goes, Eric's here. And he said, you're not crazy. You're a medium. And I went, no way. And so that was the initial conversation. It was kind of she and I talking about that mediumship, and I told her how I had been feeling, and she said, "Oh yeah, that's real common." And so it was nice to have her to talk to, and for her to confirm things. And then I just said, "Is there anyone, else there?" And she said, "This might sound kind of weird, but Paul Walker's here." And I just almost burst into tears because that was, in fact, who had been visiting me and hanging out where I had almost thought I was losing my mind for a while. And I did not tell her, "Oh, is he there?" It just was literally, she was like, "Yep. So this is who's here. Does that make any sense to you?" And I was like, "Oh God, okay, this is real." And she said, he's been visiting and he's kind of getting you ready for some things that you're going to be doing. And she said, "But I just feel called to tell you there's probably going to be some learning curves and some confusion." So, which there definitely was for me in the beginning. There's a lot to learn about mediumship and channeling when you first start out, like, how to work with energy, how to get grounded. Definitely, you don't want to go too fast. You definitely want to also make sure you're connecting in through higher consciousness, not tapping into human energy or human emotions, like the people around those people who have passed away. They have a lot of human emotion, but the person who passed away does not, because they're in spirit. So you want to be really careful about confusing those different emotional energies. A lot of people who are very in their feels, but don't use their claircognizance or their intuition at the same time, or don't have higher spiritual understanding, they don't know that they're connecting to human emotions. So they project the emotions they're picking up or feeling onto the spirit, and they think the spirit feels that way, and that's not how they feel. And that's not what they're giving off. They're not giving off anger. They're not giving off any of that. They don't feel any of that. They may have when they were alive, but they don't when they were dead. So it's almost like you have to go through this energy bubble of the human energy that's there. And that's how you kind of lift up in consciousness, is you have to kind of go, quote unquote, up above that. And so she kind of mentioned a couple things that helped me, and I still had a lot of learning curves with those. And learning how to interpret what I was picking up was a huge one for me. I made a lot of mistakes with that in the beginning. And as I started to collect data and information on what I was picking up and started to learn how to be more neutral, as Eric and my guides say, that helped me a ton. So Eric and Paul were around for a while when I first went through my awakening, which again was super weird to me because I didn't know either of them. But I got to know Eric very, very well, and he obviously still hangs around. And after Paul came in, he was right about what he had said, by the way. Several people started to come as I started to come out with my gifts online, which back in the day was on Facebook. People started to contact me in people that I had never met. And they said, "I know this is going to sound super weird, but I have someone on the other side who's telling me that I can reach out to you and talk to you about some of the things that are happening for me. They said that you'll understand and I won't sound crazy to you." And I was like, "Sure. Yeah. What's going on? Who's been saying that from the other side?" And they said, "It's going to sound weird, but Paul Walker told me to contact you." And I would be sitting there going, "Are you fucking kidding me right now?" And I'd be like, "No, yeah, that doesn't sound weird at all." And that happened like 4 or 5 times, very quickly. After this whole experience. And now I don't really work with him anymore. Like I'm not, but I started to realize, wow, he's really working with a lot of people and he's trying to connect a lot of people. And that's when I realized there are a lot of very well-known people on the other side that are trying to work with a lot of souls over here, to help them with their spiritual ascension and to help us with our growth. And so they almost act, I think, because what they've told me is that because they're well known, or because they were well known when they were alive, and because we have such a large celebrity focused culture, especially with the news and TV and social media and entertainment and stuff, those industries being so big, especially in the Western world, a lot of these people who have passed, who are well known, it's almost like they know they have more eyes on them. So they know that they can be channels to connect so many people because so many more people know of them. So they can kind of act like this 6 degree of separation kind of being on the other side, which is really, really cool. So after that experience happened, and Paul had stepped back more, I started to have all these other beings from the other side requesting to come and channel through me. And it was very spirit led. Like I would be sitting in a coffee shop and thinking, okay, what do I need to do next as my work was growing? And kept listening to spirit, like over and over. I was like, you guys tell me, I don't know how this works. Like, what should I be doing? And I had seen other people kind of doing different spiritual business stuff, but I didn't feel like I resonated. I felt like there was something unique for me to do. Like, I just knew it in my gut. So basically that kind of had all opened the door for these kind of well-known people from the other side who started coming through and requesting to share messages. And I started doing that in my little Facebook group. And I had like a little group of people that I coached and mentored in mediumship and intuition during one of my previous courses, which was called Infinitely Wise Woman. And Infinitely Wise Woman 2.0. And so they would come through and they would teach, and not just the well-known people, but there were tons and tons of guides that would come through that were more just like my guides teaching, I guess I would say. But these people would come through and say, I want to talk about this and I want to talk about that with your group. And I just kept saying, okay. And I really let them lead the way. And then after a little while, it just tapered off. And I just said, okay. And I asked my guides, like, what happened? Like, what happened with the messages tapering off? And they said, it's time to rest. So I actually, I just did private readings and private coaching and teaching for a while, but I didn't share as much on online for a little while, or didn't do as many of those channelings anymore. And I just took a little breather from that part of it. It almost felt like the energy just kind of pulled itself back, which, for those of you guys who are developing, just know that can happen sometimes. And it's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's usually just because actually, like, you need to rest, like they're ramping up something else, or there's something else that you're going to have to be working on for the time being. So that said, if you are having encounters with someone on the other side that just keeps coming to you, that is well known, or you're kind of like, I don't understand, I feel like I can feel their presence and I feel like they have a message, they probably do have a message for you. And it doesn't mean that they're going to stay there forever. It doesn't mean you have to do anything with it. They will never, ever tell you, you must do this, you must do that. They will tell you things like, so if they're phrasing it that way, just so you guys know, it's more like, hey, like, if you don't do this, there is a cause and effect that naturally happens in the universe, and here's what the outcome likely will be. So it's almost like they're kind of just saying, hey, we're here to tell you that, but we're not like here to tell you that effect is going to happen because of them. Like, they don't make negative things happen to us. That's not how they work. That is how humans work. So they're not authority figures over us. But if you do have someone well known on the other side, I know many psychics and mediums now. Like, as I started to go have more and more of this happen, I started to look up other people, and I started to say, I cannot be the only channeler or the only new medium who is hearing from these people. Like, there's got to be other people. And it turns out there are quite a few. So if you Google around looking for them, you'll find them. But there were a lot of really interesting stories and anecdotes that came through from people on the other side over the years, some well known, and like I said, and some of them were other people's loved ones where they weren't well known, but they still had really wonderful things to say and advice to give about living a really wonderful life. And like I said, everyone wanted to give guidance. Everyone wanted to say, when I was alive, I thought fame or money or this or that was really important, but it really wasn't, or I'm so glad that I did X, Y, and Z. I'm really proud of myself for doing that. And I'm proud of myself for having this and that experience, or giving myself that, or giving this to other people. So everyone had really profound and really wonderful things to say. It wasn't about their private details of their life. It wasn't like celebrity gossip type stuff. And I would not be interested in that anyways. That's not my jam. It was more like they wanted to bring through messages of inspiration, like I said, guidance or comfort to people here on earth to help us navigate the earthly existence better. So if you're interested in that, I will be bringing through more of that here on the podcast. But as I've mentioned before, it's going to be more so the women that history tried to erase. And I've got quite a lineup coming up, and I've been feeling this lately. Like I said, with those, I let those be spirit led. So I wait for them to approach me or to come to me when the timing's right. And I really trust spirit because they're really good at timing. So, they are starting to line up, and I have some names coming through for people that I will start to record channeled messages from to put on the podcast, and I will put some in my Patreon group. So if you guys are not in there, feel free to jump in there and be a pod squad member, or a Spirit Speaker squad member. Spirit Speaker's got quite a few fun folks in there. And I will share some exclusive behind the scenes stuff of the interviews in there. And I'm starting to put videos in there as well. They get a lot of extra stuff too, and really good content in there outside of that. So feel free to come and join us in there. I'll link it up in the show notes. Also, I wanted to just make a quick note that my course, The Art of Channeling, is starting this Wednesday. I know that's pretty quick for a lot of people, but you do have, I'm going to let people sign up through like mid-April. So if you have to miss a class or two, NBD, they're all going to be recorded. So you'll have access to all the replays right away from that course. So if you're interested in learning how to channel people from the other side, you want to learn how to channel ancestors or guides or your own loved ones, you want to learn how to be a medium, whether you want to do readings for other people or whether you're like, I just want to have my own really strong connection to the other side just for me. You are welcome to come and join us. If you're like, I want to work with my own higher consciousness to bring through amazing movie script ideas or book ideas or inventions or innovations or ideas for companies and businesses. I want to learn how to channel energy. I want to learn how to channel art. I want to learn how to channel through my body, when I'm running, and like use it to help me feel lighter and brighter. That is the type of stuff that we are going to be learning, and each person will likely have their channeling ability come through in, like, there will be many things we all have in common with the channeling ability, but there will be many ways that you're meant to uniquely use your channeling ability. And that's like the exciting part for me, is seeing how you guys are going to use your ability. So I hope that you guys will come and join us for that course. It's something really near and dear to my heart. It was, like I said, all of my work when I put courses and masterclasses out there and stuff like that, it is all spirit led and spirit guided. Like it really comes through from them almost as like a request or an idea, like, hey, like people really need this right now, or this will be most helpful. This will yada, yada. So that is why I created The Art of Channeling, because I just felt like this is the right thing at the right time. And so I will link that up in the show notes again for you guys. And I'm so glad that you guys are here. I'm excited to be able to share these types of stories with you, even if it's a little out there. When I started to realize like, this person from the other side has come through to other people as well. And I'm certainly not the first one, nor will I be the last. It started to not feel so weird anymore. And like I said, I do think so many of them on the other side are trying to connect us down here to help us with some sort of larger, really good initiative or plan that they have going on. I will say one thing, they never do anything that is not in our best interest. So, as I've learned to really clear my channel and properly interpret messages and stuff, I've just learned they are really benevolent beings, and they're really trying hard to help all of us on earth to clear up our minds, clear up our bodies, and really live wonderful lives and create a better world. So I am excited to hear your stories. If you have stories or questions about any of this type of stuff, it is not weird to me. I have heard it all. I have seen a lot over the last decade. So please feel free to reach out to me. My email is spiritspeaker2022@gmail.com. It's the only thing that doesn't match my Spirit Speaker 25 handle. Or you can go to my website, and I'll put a link in the show notes, but I have a podcast page on my website where you can contact me with your stories, with your questions, for listener episodes and all of that fun type of stuff. Or you can jump again in the Patreon Pod Squad group, or in one of the many other groups on Patreon, and you can submit questions or stories in there. And I pull from the group and from my emails first. So thank you guys so much for listening, and go and have a fantastic week.